Hello, welcome back. Today I kind of have something a little different than my normal creative creations. Because obviously I do other things than just bake and cook and everything. So one of the things I like to do is sometimes make tumblers, and here is one of them. This one is customized, has a name on it, or a nickname. But so today's video is going to be a creative creation that's not edible, and it's this tumbler. But get my light because it's rainy day, so it's the Marauder's map. But let's see, hopefully you can see that it has the disappearing footprints. So obviously this is a UV light, so, but obviously this would work also in the daylight. You go outside, have your cup, and the footprints are going to reappear, and then in a couple minutes they'll start to fade out. So I love how this tumbler turned out. So yeah, if you want to see how I made this non-edible creative creation, which I know is different for my channel, but occasionally I might pop like a couple in here and there, maybe like once a month or something, you know, let me know if that's something you want to see. Definitely appreciate it. Put in the comments if you like the idea of some non-edible creative creations or you want to stick with just the edible creative creations. But I hope you enjoy this tutorial. So if you do, don't forget to like the video, and also make sure to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you can know when I upload all my videos, all my creative creations, edible and non-edible. So as you can see, it's starting to disappear. So, oh, it doesn't take too long. But yeah, so stay tuned and watch the tutorial on this tumbler. See you next time.
So I have my already spray painted tumbler. I did like an off-white color to kind of match the fabric. And then I have a piece of fabric that's a little bit bigger than the tumbler, just so I can trim the edges, but you don't want to go like right exact size of the tumbler, because then you might have misjudged and then that piece of fabric is a waste. So I'm going to put a thin layer of Mod Podge on to get the fabric to stick to the tumbler, and just do a thin layer and go around and then slowly wrap it around the tumbler and smooth it out as you go so you don't get any air bubbles underneath. So then once I have it all wrapped around and glued down, I'm going to take an X-Acto, and best bet is a really nice sharp blade. As you can see, this one was a little bit duller, so it gave me just a little struggle. But you want to go where the two pieces overlap, and then what you're going to do is you're going to peel the left side of the one piece of fabric. Well, I guess depending on which way you overlapped it. You're going to take the one piece of the top layer, and then you're going to take the opposite side that you cut off of the other side, and then the two pieces will meet up. Then just put some more Mod Podge down to make sure that those edges stick nice to your tumbler. And then all you're going to do is put another layer of Mod Podge over top of all that fabric. Here I'm just trimming up and making it a little bit more even at the bottom because my cut wasn't perfectly even, so I'm just making it a little bit straighter of a line. And then I'm going to snip vertically with the tumbler in pretty small sections, so when you fold that down and wrap it under the bottom, you won't get these big, huge, bulgy pieces. So then you're going to put the Mod Podge under those edges and make sure to get really nice around the tumbler as well. And then you're just going to start pushing those down so they stick to the bottom of the tumbler. Then you're going to trim the top piece, and I actually went and got a fresh blade on my 𝐥𝐤𝐬, so this one cut much nicer. And you're just going to trim it right along the edge of the tumbler. And then of course you're going to put Mod Podge on that edge to make sure that stays nice and smooth and stuck to the tumbler. After you have your bottom all nice and Mod Podge down, and you have the top all Mod Podge down as well, and you have that layer of Mod Podge on, you want to let it dry. I think I let mine dry for about 4 hours. I know Mod Podge says it's dry in 2 hours, but you just want to give it that extra time to make sure it's nice and dry. Here I'm just putting on my first layer of epoxy. I just followed the directions and mixed it I think for about 5 minutes like it calls for, and then I'm just going to spread a thin layer all over evenly, all over the tumbler, and I let that dry for 15 hours. It might have actually been a full 24 hours by the time I was able to get back to it to do the next step, but this epoxy is an 8 to 15 hour full cure time. So I know I definitely waited the full 12 hours, but I believe I waited 24 hours almost to do this, because with sticking the vinyl down, you really want to make sure that that epoxy is nice and cured, because otherwise when you pull the vinyl up in the next step, it'll pull that epoxy right off, and then you got to start all over again. For this step, I'm just taking some alcohol ink. I think I used caramel color, which actually was a little bit darker than I wanted to be. I think I accidentally grabbed the wrong one, but I just dabbed that on with a makeup sponge, and then of course take your alcohol and get it activated. And I went on again with, I think it was latte for the next little bit, just to kind of diffuse it a little bit more, and a little bit more alcohol. Now for the footsteps, I have vinyl cut out with the little footprints. You can pretty much use any footprint out there that you find. And then I just cut that with my 𝐥𝐤𝐤 and laid it out on the cup. I wanted 2 separate areas, I guess kind of actually 3 areas, just so all the footprints weren't on just one section of the tumbler. And so you're just going to make sure those are nice and down, especially around the footprints themselves, so none of the tacket or the powder gets on anywhere else, or under, I should say, the vinyl. Now I'm just adding the personalization for this cup, which again was cut out of vinyl, but just wanted to put the footprints down and then see where the best location was going to be for it. Now I'm going to take just a small paintbrush or makeup brush, whichever you have, and put a thin layer of the tacket down in the footsteps. Try to make sure that you stay in the footprint area. Obviously, if it gets on the vinyl just right next to the footprint, it's not that big a deal, but you want to make sure you don't get anywhere else in the cup, because then if any of the powder gets on, you will have a spot when it's activated in the sunlight. But again, don't go too heavy on this, because you're going to do this 3 times, so you really just need a thin layer, and you'll actually be able to see, it's a little hard to see in the video, but you can just see a little bit of like a milky white color where you've put the tacket, as opposed to the regular color of the tumbler. Then once you have all the tacket down on all the footprints, you're going to then take another dry brush, and you're going to put your UV activated powder, again in a very thin coat or layer, on those footprints that you'd already laid the tacket down. Before you lay the powder down, you just want to kind of touch it with your finger and make sure that it's, for the most part, dry. It is going to be a slight tack to it. That's why it's called tacket. But you don't want it to be like super wet, because then you're just going to have a mess with your powder and brush. By the time you get all your footprints done, then it's time to go back and start the second coat on the footstep that you started with the first footstep or footprint. Again, you're going to do this 3 total times. So you're going to do a layer of the tacket, a thin layer of the tacket, then a thin layer of the UV powder, then another thin layer of tacket, then another thin layer of the UV powder, and then the final thin layer of Tack It, and the final thin layer UV powder. You can do more if you want, or you could do less. Really just depends on how, I guess, like prominent you want the footsteps to be. I wanted them to stand out pretty good, so I went with 3, and I think it turned out great. But again, to each their own. So if you want to do a little less so they're not quite as vibrant, you can do that. Or maybe do like 4 or 5 if you really, really want them to be bold. Here I'm just checking with the UV light to make sure that everything is going on nicely and that the footprints are coming out good, and kind of like what my coverage looks like. Make sure I didn't have any like really missing spots with the powder or everything. This is just a UV flashlight that you can get a lot of places. You can get it on Amazon. I'll try to make sure to put a link in my description if you're interested in getting one of these. Again, just kind of nice to check your work while you're going over everything, and then also before you put the final coat of the resin on, or the epoxy, to go over your whole cup and make sure that no powder got stuck anywhere that you don't want to have that UV light reaction. If you don't have one of the flashlights, you can always just kind of undo your cup and take it outside or next to a window or whatever, and just have the sunlight activate it just to check it. But the flashlights aren't too bad. Once you get the 3rd coat done, or however many coats you're doing, and you're all done with the footprints, then you can just go ahead and peel your vinyl off right away. You don't really have to wait. It's pretty dry and is fine to just go ahead and peel that vinyl right away. Then I took the flashlight again, like I said, and just did a double check on it, and there was like one area where the vinyl had pulled the Tack It and the powder a little bit, so I just kind of took my fingernail and just pushed it back in so it wasn't a misshapen footprint. Then once that's all done, I went ahead and put my final layer of epoxy on. Just again, how you normally put your epoxy on. And then let it cure for the full time. Again, I let it go for a full 24 hours just to be on the safe side. And then you're all done. And I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, I'd greatly appreciate if you could give it a thumbs up or a like. And then also, if you're new to my channel and haven't subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. If you have made it this far in the video, comment disappearing footprints. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and also you can let me know in the comments if you're interested in more non-edible tutorials, or if you prefer the edible tutorials. But I just think it would be fun to every once in a while show some of the other non-edible creative creations I make. I hope you enjoy, and I'll see you next time.